So, hello everyone. We're again in the BetBlocker podcast, and today we have Markus Neubauer. I hope I didn't
You managed
murder.
by now.
Okay, I did manage. And Markus is an old friend of mine. We have worked in safer gambling both in different companies, and same companies, and we always like to call a spade a spade. Welcome to the podcast, Marcus.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So, Marcus, how did you end up working in gambling?
That is a tricky question.
Mhm.
Basically, it was like 2016. Um, my old relationship broke completely apart, and I was at a point where I was just like, can I also restart my career? Well, I was like 30. What was I? 30, 35. Well, I was just like, okay, nothing is keeping me here. Well, my ex-partner has basically the apartment, the two cats, the furniture. So let's look for jobs abroad. Well, and then I stumbled across a job with Digi Outsource, a South African-based company that is doing basically the managed services for not just but also Betway Group, for example, back then,
Mhm. Yeah.
and the Palace Group. The Palace Group is a little bit. Yeah, I will not go into details here, but that was, of course, in the old days, as you remember very well from the news. Mm, let's say the VIP department was very eager, in some cases. So it was very interesting. And already back then, basically, starting in customer support, taking your 150 live chats in the night while the telephone was ringing. Yeah, was very challenging, but also already back then I was very keen to know more about safer gambling, because especially when you have then those night shifts, and you have then all those frequent bonus hunters coming into the live chat. Well, you can clearly feel that something is off if you have certain players that are coming 5 times after wagering away all the deposits. And they tell you then, oh, I don't have, most probably don't have money to cover my rent. And there are certain operators that would offer you free spins then, because bonus is not possible now. Yeah.
I mean, it's this sort of thing when you were talking about the phones ringing. It's like, oh my god, I remember, the first contact center, sort of gambling that I managed. At the very beginning, we had like thousands of calls a day. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, well, was really a good experience, I have to say, because it is extremely challenging, and it's something we in the industry easily forget. That those guys that are on the telephone lines, that are taking the live chats, they are the forefront, and they are doing extremely hard work. It is very challenging if you are on the shift roster. You have then maybe 4 days night shift, 2 days off. Then you have the day shift. It can go to your substance a little bit, and the work is extremely challenging. You have to keep track
Yeah.
of a lot of things at the same time.
Okay. What's the because you have been on the phones. What's the worst thing that you have heard on the phones? Back then.
First, I would say that was a discussion with a Swiss lady, where we were aware that she is very rich, but she was, let's say, reluctant to send her source of funds documentation. Um, and in this discussion, it became very evident that there is most probably a slight gambling problem existing. She was then telling that with how many casinos she is, and how many casinos did not ask for any source of wealth documentation.
Mm.
Yeah, well, in the good old days, yes,
Mm.
no controls, no nothing.
Yes.
and easily you have then customers that are spending within 1 week 30K, and no documentation really. No. It is it is something sometimes a little bit heartbreaking. Even if it's a wealthy person, you know exactly that if there is a person that is spending like 400K within 3 months, you know exactly there is the point that will come eventually, where they basically hit rock bottom, and yeah. It is like you cannot really like block out your emotions. It is not always possible. As, but yeah, same like suicide prevention calls. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you have a person that is completely devastated, and has clearly fear of losing their own livelihood, the existence, being at risk to be thrown out of the apartment because there is no money for the rent anymore. Um, it is extremely dense. So it's always important, if you are managing an operations team, doing phone calls like these, to be very aware and take care of your staff.
Yeah, it's it's tough, and I remember when we were working together at gig, that you need to take care of the staff, because you get people, as you say, it can be very taxing, and it's a bit of a long game, in the sense like, okay, all these calls, the chipping away, and on top of that, you get those crazy shifts, like 3 days morning, 4 days afternoon, 3 nights, and then sometimes the life rhythm, it's be like, okay, the people in the industry, sometimes they work hard and they party hard, and then you know recovering, and many of the people that I don't know, like move from Sweden or England or whatever to
Yeah.
Malta or Gibraltar. I always say, that many of them, they're running away from a dysfunctional situation. So it can be
Yes.
quite difficult. And yeah,
We
sometimes
met.
the ghost. Yeah,
I'm pretty certain we met quite a lot. Of them.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I remember that when I met you for the first time, when we, I mean, like you were managing, safer gambling, when I joined a gig, and it was you know or at least during my time, because I did work for a year. I found that it was quite of a good company. They listened to me, they let me do the stuff. You guys, you know, have a big carte blanche. I know that sometimes with the white labels, it was difficult to push back.
Oh yes, oh yes. Especially when you have then white labels that are operating under your license. Yeah. Um, you as a company, you are sometimes quite at risk. I would say there are certain names that I will never forget. Managing certain white label casinos, um, that were pushing back wherever they could. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is most probably is the reason this pushing back, that not everybody is made to be in safer gambling forever, because it's uh, it's a continuous challenge and fighting windmills sometimes, depending, of course, which company. I mean, as you said, GIG was very good. We had a very good C-level um, team that was listening. I'm at the moment working together again with some of them. I cannot tell too much about it, but not yet, at least. Um, but yeah, that is extremely important that you have a C-level management team that is understanding not just the substance about what we are talking. So they should be aware. They should do their own training. They the same like me here. I'm in compliance and I have a little bit of commercial awareness. That's all I need. I don't need to understand everything what they are doing, but I need to have a little bit of commercial awareness when I'm implementing certain things, certain policies, certain parts of the processes. I'm very well aware that that could harm, of course, certain things that are commercially, um, not very welcome. Let's put it this way. I mean, on the other hand, we had an experience with other companies where we were working together,
I
where
mean,
not necessarily too many in the C-level management team were listening.
yeah, I mean, I think it's better not to name that
No.
particular company, but I felt that at the end, I was having like a bit of PTSD, of the horrific situations, the being dismissed all the time. I mean, like it was like, what the heck, and I remember that when I joined that company, they promised me like, okay, like nobody harmed by gambling was
Mm.
the slogan. I think we changed it for nobody unharmed. And it was like, oh my god, that's terrible. They tell you that, okay, all the resources, all the things, and then they say, no.
Yeah, or you get an late evening emails from some person in C-level that we are ruining everything because we blocked a VIP player.
I mean, I think, particularly in the old days, because I remember when I also worked, it wasn't gig at another company in Malta. We had a case. I think it ended up in the press. These sort of things. It was a wealthy person that she lost her dad, and then the VIP manager, gave her like a big bonus, because the person was really upset, and it came with a brilliant idea of giving her a good bonus to cheer her up. And the thing is that when we had all the problem, I had to review the whole case and all that, and I knew the person, and the person was still there, and I went to the person and said, why the heck you do that? It's a person that is vulnerable, is in a difficult situation, and farther down the line, she have complained and say, oh, they were predating on me and all that, and the person was you know on a way, she was oblivious, like, oh, but you know she was really upset, and I thought that that would cheer her up. I could give her up to X thousand. So I went and I spoke with the director and explained the situation, and I said, okay, she's a really good customer, give her whatever. She was really like, okay, I have done a good job. And I was talking with a person, and I could really see that you know there was no malice, but no understanding of
Yes,
the whole situation. You many times you find situation that is okay, is stupidity, and is but it didn't come from a nasty place. It's a bit like,
yes.
yeah, so
No, I mean, in I say, very little of the cases, you would have malicious intent. There have been a lot of bad actors on the market, and the good thing is they're becoming less and less. But in most cases, it's not malicious intent. It's really a huge knowledge gap. It's like you can compare it basically doing handiwork yourself at home. Plumbing, for example. You don't have the knowledge, but you still attempt it. Yeah. and then most probably you break something because you have the knowledge gap. And that is the thing, of course. We working in those companies, we realize, okay, this knowledge gap that is easily handled. Yeah? We just need to roll out the training that the people are actually hearing for the first time. Oh, this is a vulnerable person because there was a personal loss. Yeah. Why would you? I mean, we both have to agree. Yeah. In the first thought about it, like you have been working in commercial teams, maybe in sales departments before. Yeah. You had never actually thought about it. No, it's the same like yeah, mental health and overall. Yeah? If you never faced depression, how should you know? So it is of course very important to roll out training, to make teams aware that this actually exists, that players that are using medication while they are playing, there might be a certain risk, and if they drop this news to you, better check. That are all those little things you might not think about.
I mean, the plumbing analogy comes, it sort of landed home. I remember once I tried to fix a toilet at home, and I ended up having to pay like a 500 quid bill on a plumber.
Yeah, been there, done that, Pedro. But yeah, of course, if you would have watched a do-it-yourself video before, you might have had the knowledge preventing this. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the bad thing. I actually watch a few videos, but sometimes even you know it's interesting because this analogy, because you find a lot of like online safer gambling training that now is like videos and stuff. It's been like and with these sort of things, sometimes I'm a bit apprehensive. You watch a kung fu movie, but you don't know how to fight. So sometimes it's a bit of a worry. When you get all this type of
I mean,
training that just watch this video, answer 5 questions, you're
yes.
ready. You're an
On
expert.
the other hand, you have to agree that, like, when was it? Like 2019 when we were working together at GIG. Would you have found something like safer gambling training videos on YouTube? Yeah. The good thing is it is out there now. Yeah. If we, of course, it's something completely different now. Is it really good? Is it really helpful? Are there trainers that are giving the right advice? That's another thing. But some years ago, it was not out there.
Well, sometimes it's better than nothing. I can agree. I can agree on that. But some training, it then they're like me and my plumbing. Watch the video and then
Yeah.
something that I wanted to ask you, Marcus, because you have worked in the industry in Malta, in Gibraltar, and now in Cyprus.
Well, I wouldn't so much say now. There is a huge industry in Cyprus. There are
Okay.
quite some operators, of course, and quite some B2B providers also. But it's not that huge if you compare it now to Malta, for example. Um, so with this industry, you are relocating quite often. That's very clear. Looking at how much money I have spent for relocation since the last 9 years. That's quite some cars I could buy for that money.
I remember a time that where you were renting in two places at the same time. No?
Pedro, that was even three places because you have to take into account my partner's apartment at that time. So basically four. If you so
Mm.
we had the apartment, two apartments basically in Malta. We had the apartment in Gibraltar. And then we were basically deciding that we are not moving back to Gibraltar. We want rather to live in Spain. Yeah, if COVID breaks out again, that we are not confined to some little area with some square meters where the maximum walk you can have is 40 minutes.
Uh,
Um, So yeah, that was 4 apartments.
Wow.
And yeah, COVID. That made a lot of things interesting. Let's put it this way. Like 5 years ago, if you would have asked me, oh, what do you think about remote work? I would have said no, 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 no.
You know, funnily enough, I started doing remote work. I think it was like 2014 or 15
Mm,
when I started working um, for the Gordon Moody Association because they were based in Dudley,
yeah.
and I was in Brighton. I was working from home back then. It was like pretty much 3 years working from home, and I remember that one day a week, I had to go to Dudley. So I need to go Brighton to London, London to Birmingham, and then Birmingham to Dudley, and then get a cab, to the residential treatment offices. And it was like 8 hours or something like that. And many times, the train was delayed. I missed my meeting, and then I have to go back straight
Yeah,
away.
especially
So it's like in the old days was, I remember the CEO, was like, okay, let's do Skype, rest in peace, the old Skype, and didn't want to do Skype.
finally, finally.
I think
Yeah.
it's a good thing. It was something a bit like an old thing that was resisting death, but was, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can imagine, especially what you might have spent that for commuting with. I mean, we know trains in the UK, uh, they basically rob you.
Well, it was the charity was covering that, which is, not ideal. I think on the second or third year, I managed to convince them just to go, to do the face-to-face weekly meeting once a month, and they could have the laptop with my face. But I remember, back then, it was a bit like when you tell people that you were working from home, they were a bit like, what?
mm, yes, yes, good old days. Huh? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm happy with it. Well, now being basically completely in a remote job, but yes, sometimes I miss going to the office, having more people around. But the good thing is, of course, compared to Malaga, from Cyprus, you basically just hop onto an airplane for 90 quid, and you are 2.5 hours later in Lucca International Airport. So
Okay.
it is okay. And we have offices there now, meaning if I decide to just hop over, or friends from Malta are deciding to pay me a visit, that's not too bad. And we
Yeah,
have two airports here.
not too bad, not too bad. I was, thinking a little bit about the remote work thing, because you know there was a period when after the pandemic you went back, to the office, and okay, then you're in the office, but then you just have like 8 Zoom meetings, during the day, and it's like, what the heck I'm doing here?
Yes, yes, yes. I mean, if it's an anyway, back-to-back meetings, yeah, and yeah, the thing is, if I have a home office, I am taking care of the Wi-Fi. I am responsible for having the printer here. So if I'm taking care, it is working properly. Thing is, of course, you are then in a huge office building. You have 50 repeaters in this huge building. And only half of them give good coverage. And you're then waiting in your meeting room. You have a very important meeting with some externals, and then the signal is cutting off.
Hmm.
And that is like, hmm. There are certain things that are everywhere the same, in all the larger organizations, and unfortunately, there is it's like not too much priority put into working Wi-Fi. It's the same like coffee makers. Yeah, I have my own coffee maker here. I take care that the beans are well selected and the coffee tastes good and the coffee maker is working. If you have a huge building and you have basically then only one coffee maker working in the fifth floor and you have to go well, most probably half a kilometer to get there. Well, no, that's not okay. Yeah. Um, it's I would not even say that this is like certain perks that an employer is providing you with. No, that's basics. And if the basics are not working, then sorry.
Yeah. Uh, uh, after you know that company that we don't want to remember, you move entirely to compliance. How has it been the change?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I mean, the move to compliance initially was not really a move because at that company afterwards, I was still at least to the public responsible for safer gambling. I did not have to give it up completely. Let's put it this way.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, it is of course different challenges, different fights. Um, um, so you are still touching a lot of safer gambling. It's not like, oh, that's gone. Yeah, whenever it is coming to certain audits or to certain assessments, you as compliance are the one that is basically facing the auditors or the testing house. So you need to be aware. Yeah, what tools are out there? What tools do we have there? What are the alerts? What triggers do we have? How does it function? Yeah, because you have to explain it to somebody, or if the UKGC is knocking on your door, yeah, hey, we are here again. Show us your top 100 customers, please. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you need to be aware. Yeah.
Top
So
hundred
it's
NGR, no?
exactly. Yeah. And then you have the fun Zoom meeting or um,
It was a
um,
Skype, no? With the gambling commission, I think.
well, they switched to Teams then later. Yeah.
Okay, because I remember, back then maybe was even on Skype,
Yeah. I mean, good that Microsoft finally pulled the plug. What was it last month from Skype?
I think so.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, because Skype is a huge headache for anybody in compliance. Whenever you have B2B businesses, they there are certain people in the sales team, in the account management team. Oh yeah, but we have the Skype group with a customer, and that is yeah, but it is communication that is not within our control. That is
Yeah.
not good. That we have Skype channels everywhere. It is.
Working in safer gambling was something even worse than Skype. Was WhatsApp. When you have like
Oh dear.
the VIP, HVC, whatever, contacting via WhatsApp, and
Yep.
then you get the customer like 2 years later sending you some horror screenshots with someone that allegedly was his account manager. No?
Yeah. 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 Just seen enough. Well, seen enough.
Before the eyes start twitching, no, like.
Yeah, it is. It is right now. Yeah, I can feel it. It's yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah, that I mean, of course, I understand that. Yeah, things like WhatsApp or Line, yeah, depending on the market, are quite good if you are a VIP account manager to stay in touch. Just like, hey, I'm going to annual leave, just like to let you know. And here are some free spins and a goodwill bonus, just deposit. Yeah, it is, of course, very, very good to keep in touch with your good customers.
Mm.
But there is, of course, a lot of, uh, yeah. Uh, I don't have to mention, from a compliance perspective, I don't like it.
I, you know, I wanted to, to dig a little bit into Japan and the Japanese market. No, I think you're guilty a little bit that I end up in Japan. A week
Pleasure.
ago. Thank you. No, actually, it's an amazing country. I think. Yeah, and going, like in the streets and all that, you see, the pachinko halls, and said the pachinko slots. I had a bit of a picky look. I didn't went in full
You,
on
you
because
didn't
I,
go. Whoa.
'cause I was with the family,
Yeah.
but it really looked massive. From the picky look that you got some buildings, like 5, 6 floors. Like
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is very clear that even though gambling is largely outlawed in Japan, it is existing, of course, and even for money. Even though you would just win tokens, of course. But if the Yakuza shop buying those tokens is just like next door and belongs to the same owner, well, um, it is huge. I'm not sure. Have you been at one of those entertainment parlors with the crane games and things like
I
this
have
by
I
any
have
chance?
seen them. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're also massive. Yeah.
And there you have also there's then basically gambling not for money, but you still can win certain prizes and so on.
Mm.
But kids have access. So it is a little bit like in Finland where you have a slot machine in every pub and kids and teenagers can just access them. It is a little bit worrying. So I'm really happy that we could uh, um, help you out a little bit, getting BetBlocker there now, because there are certainly a lot of players that are targeted then by Curacao licensed casinos mainly,
I
and they are unfortunately not really taking care. It is extremely difficult. I have seen one scene once that was um, this Chubo line in the metro, and there was like middle-aged guy, I would say, N30, and he was usually, when they are commuting, the Japanese people, so mornings and evenings, everything is quiet. You can hear a needle drop to the floor. But this guy was just like suddenly freaking out like hell, shouting in the metro station. And my partner and I could then see, oh, mm, online casino. He has some slots open. So most likely he had a larger loss. Um, it is, even though still illegal in Japan. You have a huge market there, targeted by gray casinos, um, and they not necessarily take a lot of care about safer gambling.
I mean, I remember, working for well-known, UK casinos that back then they were targeting massively,
Yeah,
I mean, not with an UK license, but, with, type of license, targeting, the Japanese market, like 2018, 19,
yeah.
was, okay, who's your payment provider for Japan,
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is to be very successful on the Japanese market, you need basically a huge marketing budget. First of all, whatever you are having, a commercial material, everything needs to be very localized. And it's not like, oh, you can have a European graphic designer taking care of banners and so on, because there is an absolute lack of understanding of what is actually attracting for Japanese customers. For example, having different font types in one banner. Yes, that is actually normal, and it should be like this. Because when you are reading kanji or hiragana, for example, you are looking at certain things differently. Yeah, the offer, different font. The price, different font, and that is how they are looking at the banners. So if you have, basically marketing managers that are, have no clue about any Eastern Asian market, and you tell them, you take care of this now, you will fail. And same with your marketing budget. If you are not pumping a lot of money in there, you have certain nice things, even though illegal, suddenly having then a bus driving through Tokyo with your little commercials, even though illegal. Seen it. Very pretty huge casino actually. Um, yeah, that is a good thing. That only larger operators have really success there. Meaning larger operators mostly have then a certain team taking care. Even though it is very difficult, of course, to have Japanese native speakers. Even though evolution and so on in Malta. I'm not sure. Did I ever send you this one video from the TV where one Japanese channel was incognito entering the evolution studio in Malta,
No, no.
reporting about young Japanese people working for this corrupt industry,
Well,
lured
but
to
they,
Malta.
you
Mm,
know, I remember that, when I have been head of operations, like in charge of customer service and all that, was a high demand trying to recruit Japanese speakers in Malta. Was a bit like, you know, and
yes.
they needed to be like, well educated, that they can write really well, because it's yeah, like the terms and conditions, they're going to read it, and all of that is something that doesn't happen in they're going to ask questions and stuff.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Yeah.
Apart from BetBlocker now, from like a couple of weeks ago, what's there in Japan to help people?
The thing is, of course, in a society that is in some ways very similar to my own German culture. If you
Okay.
look now like 20, 30 years back, it was coming to mental health treatment or mental health awareness. There was none. Very clearly, there was none. And if you would talk about psychiatry in Germany, you would still have called it a house for the... Hmm? Yeah.
Oh, the
So
straight jacket,
things,
not a bit like, okay,
yes, yes. So it is a little bit in those regards like Germany 30 years ago. If you have a very um, capitalistic driven society, so money is very important. You could see this. It's a lot about consumption. You have the advertisements everywhere. There is a lot of temptation for young people, leading to debt, for example. That is going pretty quickly, of course, in a society like this. Um, and combined with those very long working hours, 10 hours is nothing per day
I
because you would not leave the office before your boss. Your boss leaves first, and then you, as a salaryman, how they call it, you leave the office always after the boss. Meaning, if he is 10 hours there, you are 10.5 hours there.
it,
So,
it's amazing because we were on the train. I think it was I think maybe like Kyoto, or you know or Osaka or something, and there was like a guy, with the sort of, you could see that he was coming from work. It passed out
mm,
on the train, and people, they were helpful, but like, oh yeah, this happens like four times a day, so the person,
yes,
you know sort of collapse, they just help a little bit, they just put him in a sick, give him a bit of whatever, and okay, and like, okay,
yeah,
you don't see people collapsing, or if somebody collapses, okay, just, it's a bit of a drama, it's like, okay,
yes,
he's exhausted,
yeah.
so he'll just going home now, will sleep
It is
6
not real.
hours
It is
and
not real. Yeah, you can clearly see this on the reactions of the people. So it is extremely common to work very, very hard and very long times. It's not necessarily saying that you are very efficient in your work. If you're working 11 hours, well, it's not necessarily leading to a lot of focus. Um, but yeah, that is a huge issue, and there is clearly, um, during the last few years, that mental health was an issue, especially since the so-called lost generation, beginning of the 2000s, for example, when the economy really cooled down a lot. You had the first time basically unemployed people or homeless people, which was never a case before because you had basically 100% employment in Japan. Yeah. That was something new for this society. So, yeah, of course, people are then afraid to come into the situation. So you are working even harder. But working harder can lead to even bigger problems if you are, let's say, um, um, having certain tendencies to become or to get a depression, for example. Um,
Um, why do you think people gamble in Japan? For the same reasons like everywhere else, or just say, okay, if I get some money, I can just stop working 14 hours a day?
I think it is the same like in Europe. However, mm, they are people that when they are working, they are extremely focused. And I would say very often you can actually see that they are in the zone or easier in the zone because they are so focused and driven by this. So from early on, you are learning how to be focused, how to concentrate on the task that you have right now. And this combination, of course, getting into the zone, if you really looked into the pachinko parlor, what you could see is absolute focus on those pachinko slots. It's just like the eyes are really kitted to this. So I think from this perspective, there is even a higher risk to experience gambling related harm. Because if you are easily focusing
In
on
the
something like
zone.
this and
Oh,
ending up in the zone, well, um, I mean, I only went in once because it's something you do not want to see. Because I have extremely high respect for Japanese people, their dedication in whatever they are doing. And then seeing this, it is a little bit scary, very clearly.
uh,
So
how do you think the sort of gambling sort of industry? Because I have heard that, I don't know, like some big casino, they're going to start building some license or something. I'm not entirely sure about the situation. What's the situation right now, and how is do you think is going to evolve?
well, you are now basically saying or mentioning this land-based casino that is, I'm not sure if this is actually completed already, close to Osaka.
Mhm.
Um, there are some plans, but that is basically the governments there locally that makes a decision, to issue a small amount then of licenses for land-based casinos. Um, Online gambling will most likely never be regulated in Japan. And
Okay.
the reason is very clearly the involvement of certain groups like Yakuza in the politics. The Yakuza do not want to see any form of gambling being regulated. The pachinko parlors, I would not say that it's 100% in the hands of the Yakuza, but I dare to say at least 70%.
Mm.
And most probably you have maybe even seen a Yakuza. It's extremely stereotyped. When you see someone with a very colorful suit, the chances are there. Um, so they have a lot of influence, even though it's a little bit different. You cannot compare it to the Italian mafia, for example, because it is part of the history. I mean, rumor has it that they basically came into existence from Ronin. Yeah, so
Okay.
um, basically samurai that went rogue. And this clan basically became then the first Ronin, and out of that came then the first Yakuza group. It's of course nonsense, but yeah, they are tied to the communities. They are helping the communities also. It's not like, oh, they are just a threat to society, just a threat to the community.
Mm.
Yeah. But because of how they are regarded in the society, they also have a lot of influence in the diet. So diet is one of the parliaments in Japan, the upper house. So they have a lot of control. They might have the ability to blackmail certain politicians, for
But
example.
I suppose that if you look into history, that sometimes like things, okay, things that are illegal and in hands of you know illegal rings, they sort of find a way to legalize their sort of business. Okay, they get a license, they get this, and then
The thing is, of course, if you, as an operator that is already active on certain markets, you want to move the Japanese market into some regulated framework, then you would have eventually, if you do not want to operate all the time in the gray area, eventually you will have to find business partners that are having the political influence. And that is the thing, of course. You do not want to tie yourself, especially as an operator. You cannot tie yourself to certain
yeah.
underground industries.
Uh, when we talk, because normally things that they are illegal, they end up being more harmful. We see like like in the you know 20s in the US with the Volstead Act. So
Mm,
people, they could not have some scotchy, and they end up buying like bad quality products. People getting blind,
yeah.
mobsters, violence, and all of that. And it's a bit like, okay, if things keep unregulated, there's a bit like, okay, there's not the problem. People, they cannot seek help. It's something that is stigmatized, hidden. So people, they cannot. Is there, 'cause I don't know, in terms of mental health, the sort of Japanese sort of stereotype is the sort of hikokomori. I don't know if I said it right
Yep.
or wrong. Is that, okay, the person that they just live in, like in a room or something, and they never go out. Is there any other like stereotype things like depression or work anxiety or phobias or
The thing is, of course, in a
addiction?
society
Yeah.
that is very traditional and in parts very conservative, you would not discuss it. It's the same like your sexual life. Yeah, you would not discuss it necessarily. Yeah? You might, if guys are now together, they might make some jokes. Yeah, but mental health or mental health issues, that is a stigma in itself. And especially those parents that are having then a son that is not leaving the house anymore or the room because the pressure of the society is too much for them, and they feel just safer, not leaving the house, not being out there. Parents are rarely seeking help for this because for them it is a stigma.
Failure, no,
So
as a
a
parent, no.
failure, yes, yes,
Okay.
of course.
And in terms of gambling, what do you think we can do as a charity? I mean, we have very limited resources, and again, BetBlocker was translated to Japanese because thanks to you and Kenta.
Uh, uh, more Kenta, really,
Yeah,
right?
well, you probably force him to do it a little bit.
Thing is, you have, of course, because you are, I would say, a researcher yourself. So you have certain contacts already through the University of Gibraltar, for example. Um, and that is the first point, because the thing is, there are not too many charities that are necessarily now taking care about mental health per se. Of course, we have charities that are looking into domestic violence and giving them support. And there are support groups around this. But mental health and especially gambling related harm, yeah, there are some that are then attached to certain university hospitals. Yeah. But it is extremely rare. So the first thing is, of course, getting in touch with researchers there, and then these researchers there, yeah, can basically start to, yeah, with your knowledge or the insights that you have from us, from a European perspective, they can then try to attempt something like this in Japan. It's just you cannot do too much
Yeah,
because the way how the society is working, you as a foreigner, you will not have any chance to build up something when it's coming to mental health charities
you
or
know,
support groups.
it's interesting that you talk about research because last year we had in Gibraltar the International Conference of Behavioral Addictions, and actually, I attended, like a presentation from some Japanese researchers on gambling. I need to dig their email because there was a university, and again, they were talking about the stigma, the difficulties, the illegality. I feel like, okay, like, even if the reality is that, okay, they're as exposed as gambling like many other cultures because, okay, online, social media, uh, communication channels, you got thousands of companies, just targeting the Japanese market. In terms of support, there's barely nothing. There's a couple of hospitals that they may have
Mm,
a tiny small department that they just see the extreme cases, but that's about it.
yes, yes, and yeah, that's yeah, unfortunately, how things are there. And as you can, of course, see, the fact that there is something like a forest where people are going to commit suicide to be not a burden for others, that they are not committing suicide at a train station. They are going to a forest to not be inconvenient. And there you can see already this fear of being inconvenient for society, for co-workers, for the family, that is extremely deep. Um, um, the thing is, we cannot imagine it because Europeans, we as a society, yeah, we are completely different. I mean, I think I heard last week that language and our written language is basically forming how we think. And you can see how the Japanese language is written, how it's spoken, how it's verbalized. The thought procedures are completely different. It's clear from this language that they are very traditional. That putting effort into certain things is part of the language and is part of the society. People are always asking, "Oh, why is everything working so properly? Like the public transportation? Why is there not one restaurant I went to where I had bad food?" The thing is, a lot of dedication and focus to what they are doing. Yeah. But with this comes a lot of pressure. Do you think that the people that are working at JR East with a public transportation service in Tokyo, that there is no pressure, actually taking care that all the trains are punctual, maybe 2 minutes late, and they are apologizing for this already. Keeping everything clean, that you actually can eat from the floor in a train station.
I mean, it's amazing how things. I mean, I was like, like to the minute to used to, you know I don't know, in the UK that sometimes it's train lottery. You don't know if your train is going to get cancelled or not. You
We
get
call it a German.
50-50, chance.
Yes.
And, like bang on time, like
Yes.
everything on time. And it's like, wow,
Yeah.
everything clean. It's really interesting that you mentioned about the forest, people die by suicide and they go there not to be a burden, because I remember once, I was coming back from Gordon Moody, one of those days that I had to commute, you know what happened when they announced on the train that there's been a fatality, you know.
Hmm.
Okay, they stopped the trains, and everybody was complaining and all that. And I was a bit like, oh my god, there's a person that is gone. Okay, everybody's
Yeah.
going to be like a couple of hours late,
Yeah.
but this person is not going back. Possibly like the yeah the shock. When you really think of what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, I mean, there is I'm not sure if you actually saw it in the metro, for example, in Tokyo, where you have everywhere those digital screens where you can then see actually the reason for a delay. Very often it's very short in English, so you might have missed it. There are sometimes hilarious messages like bamboo on the tracks and things like this. But basically, when they are just announcing, oh, yeah, there was an incident, there was an, how are they saying it? Yeah, basically a person incident, how they
Mm.
put it. In German, we are saying Personenschaden, also very detached from
Yeah.
actually what happened there. But I had this very, very often. Might be that because I have been there often and I have been there for a long time. But
What
yeah, I had this
what
very often.
struck me was that all the tubes, they have these sort of barriers, so
Mm,
it's a bit like it feels safe, but it also made me think, okay, why is this? Is only for safety or also to
that is
preventing
also for
people?
preventing that very clearly. There's also a very good reason that above the fifth floor, windows would not even open partially anymore. There is a reason that in the hotels, for example, when you have those courtyards in the inside, yeah, that there are nets every second floor. Yeah. But if you have yeah, things like this happening more frequently, you are taking care how you are building things and how you are basically taking precautions.
First, this sort of thing is so very amazing, but there's a lot of pressure. Feels a bit like a difficult or a dangerous combo. It's a bit like, okay, people can use gambling to you know decompress, but may end up making things worse, and shame, not having help, and all of
Yeah.
that. It's yeah.
Another thing that is basically happening more frequently in Japan, like self-harm or suicide, is disappearing. Uh, the data protection laws in Japan are even more strict than anything in Europe. So if you basically indebt yourself, your family, you basically ruin everything because of gambling, as an example, you can just disappear. Uh, your wife will not be able to ever find you. If you just say, okay, I'm in Osaka, for example, and I disappear to Sapporo. The police is not allowed to give your wife, even if she is basically reporting you as missing. They are
Well,
not allowed to give information, even if they find you then. They can, of course, in having an intervention interview with you, look into the reasons, but that's your thing. So you cannot even report somebody missing.
mm,
Or a very good example is it was some years ago. We as operators, we have, of course, our procedures. Yeah, when we have a suicide threat of a customer,
mhm.
yeah, we need to take care that we, of course, inform the police. And Kenta had a situation like this where this person was in the live chat telling him, I will open my arms, my wrists. So I was just like, call the police. And, of course, yeah, Kenta did so. But yeah, they would not do anything, yeah, because it is this person's personal business. That was the reaction and reply. So it is regarded very differently, and what you are allowed as police, for example.
So, Marcus, have been a super interesting conversation as
Indeed.
always. I can't wait to see you face to face in a conference and somewhere to
Yeah,
catch up. And thank you a lot again. I know I said a lot for you and Kenta helping us with
absolute pleasure.
translation. Mhm. Awesome. Have a great weekend. Take care.
You too. Take care.
All right.